I'm Suzanne Stewart. I am the director of the Waakabanas Institute for Indigenous Health Research at the University of Toronto at the Dahlana School of Public Health. I'm from the Yellowknife Dene First Nation and Eagle Clan, and I'm very excited to be here as one of the leads of the Ontario NEIHR, working with one of our community partners, Two-Spirited People of the First Nation. So before we introduce our speaker from Two Spirits today, I want to remind everyone that there's a survey in the chat to give feedback on the webinar today, and we'd love to get that feedback to help improve and continue to make this webinar series meet the needs of all of the Indigenous communities out there. And to welcome our speaker, Keith McCrady, and our elder in residence, Clayton. So I'll do a more fulsome introduction of Keith and what he's going to share after we invite our elder Clay to do our spiritual opening. Is that okay with everyone?
Yep, sounds good to me.
Keith and Clay, that's okay with you?
Yep,
It's good.
sounds good.
Okay, miigwech. Thank you, Clay. I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, bonjour everyone. My name is, I'll introduce myself again, Clay Shirt. My spirit name is Renan Wolf. I'm originally from Treaty 6, Alberta, but I live here in Toronto. I've been here most of my life. Toronto is my home. So I want to say thank you for allowing me to be here, and it's good to be here. I'm happy that you're all here. So they asked me to do these traditional openings. It's a little, I'd say, unorthodox in the virtual world, but well, I do my best. So I just want to invite spirit into wherever you are and wherever we are. So it's a virtual circle, So with that, I want to say, begin. I want to say miigwech. I want to say thank you again to our first mother of all mothers, our mother, the earth, for providing the medicines, providing the food to sustain this beautiful gift called our lives. I say miigwech to her, everything she does for us. Again, from my heart, I pray to her. I pray for her in gratitude for everything she provides for us, the people, and our relatives. So with one mind, one heart, I say all my relations to her. I offer my prayers to Father Sky, that spirit world. Again, I ask the spirits of my ancestors, your ancestors, in a loving way to look this way for a moment or two in our lives, to give us strength physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. We give thanks to Father Sky, that spirit world. We ask the spirits of our ancestors to be with us in these very difficult, challenging times. We say thank you for always being with us and guiding us. With one mind, I say all my relations to them, to Father Sky. So I give thanks to the sun for a new day, a new beginning, for giving appearance, for rising in one of those eastern doorway, the sacred doorway, for giving the appearance of rising, a new day, a new beginning for us, the people and our relatives, for making the medicine grow, for making things grow for us in a good way, in a kind way, for bringing the light, a new day, a new beginning. And if we have done anything wrong in the past, we have this day, we have this moment to make it right, and I am grateful for that. So I say miigwech to grandmother, son. So with one mind, one heart, I say all my relations. I offer my prayers to you, grandmother of all grandmothers. Have pity on us. Have pity on me. I humble myself. I say thank you to you. Again, I pray to you. I pray for you in gratitude for everything you do for us. I love you. I say miigwech to you from my heart of hearts. Grandma Moon, so beautiful in the night. You bring light to the night. And give thanks to you for putting the waters, the rivers, the lakes, the oceans into order for us, the people, and our relatives. With one mind, one heart, I say all my relations. I offer my prayers to you, great mystery. I say miigwech to you for this beautiful gift called life. I thank you for the people in my life. I say thank you for my children. Thank you for my partner. Thank you for my friends. Thank you for all the people in my life who I love and cherish. I offer my prayers. Great mystery, whether there's nothing beyond you, Creator. I say thank you for this beautiful gift of life. I ask for the blessings for all of us who are in this circle, and I ask for the blessings for my brother here. That's all this work to do. Give him strength, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and bless him with kindness and love. Say thank you, Grandfather. Great mystery for this beautiful gift called life. All my relations. Miigwech. Thank you for allowing me to say that simple prayer. And I'm really happy to be here and to hear my brother speak. Miigwech.
Thank you so much, Clay. That's greatly appreciated. And I'm very fortunate to be here surrounded by nature to be in this meeting today with the birds and the leaves and the sky, the wind. So thank you for that. So I'd like to welcome Keith McCrady as our webinar speaker for June, which coincidentally also happens to be Pride Month here. So in Toronto. So we're very excited to have him both here for Pride Month and National Indigenous Peoples Month, whatever that means. I'm not really clear what that means. Because I know many of us, every month and every day is National Indigenous Day month. So, I've known Keith for probably at least 15 years. I know him through the work that we've both done in the community, and Keith is one of the most upstanding, hardworking, committed, dedicated community members that I know, who works tirelessly for our youth, for our children, for our families. And right now he's doing that as leader of the Two-Spirited People of the First Nation organization. And I will let Keith introduce himself and Two Spirits and shed some light on his topic, which is around being Two-Spirit and his experiences in the community. So welcome, Keith, and thank you so much for being here. It's such an honor to be here with you.
All right. Thank you, Suzanne. I really appreciate you, and I appreciate the words of my brother. We actually had a wonderful talk about a month ago, and it's really got me thinking about my own individual needs, because a lot of times I'm really focused on community needs, right? And so it's been really an interesting time for me. So, like I said, my name is Keith McCrady. That's the name my parents gave me. In fact, some of the things I talk about is about my own journey, my own Two-Spirit journey. And so I'll share some of that. But I am Ojibway and Cree from a place called Blinjitwaabik Zaaging Aaishinaabek, formerly known as Rocky Bay First Nation. I was born in Thunder Bay, and we lived kind of in the area of Rocky Bay, and then we were able to move there when I was in high school. But I consider that my home because we live 15-minute drive from there, and we didn't really get a house until then. But that was my community, that was my family. All my first cousins and aunts and uncles were there, and it was taught me a lot about community, but some of the things that happened in my childhood, I had to leave there. And so my role here at Two Spirits is kind of part of my journey of who I am and becoming the person that is sitting here talking. And so the first thing I love to share is that I actually have no preferred pronouns, and it's important to me to share the kind of story of that. And it's not so much that it's not important to me. It's more so that, from my understanding of my teachings, that this isn't part of our English, isn't my chosen language. And so the kind of pronouns and ways that we identify don't really make sense And that's how I knew it didn't really fit. The first time a young person came to me and said, "What are your pronouns?" And I'm like, "Oh, what are you talking about?" I didn't know what they were talking about, because this was when this kind of need for people to identify in a different way kind of came to light. And so I asked, very kindly and patiently what they meant, and they're like, "Oh," I'm like, "Well, I know what I look like. I know how I present, and I guess if that's how you feel, then you can call me he, him." But in true form, the first thing I always do when I have some kind of questions is, call my mom. Our relationship kind of changed in the last 20 years to something really positive. And so I just talked to her about my own identity. My mom struggled with me when I came out as a gay man when I was about 26. And she continued to struggle for a lot of times because of her Catholic upbringing. And so I had to kind of teach her along the way who I am and what I know. And so I just talked to her about it. And she's really good at kind of giving me answers without giving me an answer, and without kind of challenging her own convictions. She doesn't like to challenge herself as far as her own understanding of gender, her own understanding of sexuality, her own understanding of our traditional roles, because she really focused on kind of that Catholic influence. It was my father who taught me a lot about our traditional ways and our healing and our I grew up alongside the sweat lodge with him, and we grew up hunting and trapping and snaring and fishing and all of these things, harvesting. And I observed and I learned the value. I learned how to be patient. I learned how everything has its time, and that there really isn't such thing as Indian time. It's really, there's a time for everything and a place for everything. And so when I talked to my mom about it, she said, "Well, it's, you know who you are." My father actually talked to me about being two-spirit, because I was fortunate enough to have two-spirit people in our community. So our little small community had two-spirit people there who were living kind of openly. But the one thing I observed is when I grew up there was a lot of humor and kind of making fun of it. So people lived beside them, had relationships with those folks, but they were really kind of the butt of the joke all the time. And I didn't really appreciate that. And so my own kind of experiences in high school and my own experiences with abuse in my community made me leave. And so I share this with my mom, and so she's aware of it. She doesn't really like to talk about it, but that day, my mom said one of the most supportive things to me was, people will see you how they want to see you, but if you show them who you are, they'll see who you are. And so I never really thought it was an insult for someone to call me a female, or joke that I'm a woman or whatever. And so as I got older, I kind of hold it really high when someone calls me she, her. And those are very few people, because again, we really focus on what we look like. But people who could see who we are, some of my friends call me auntie, and I'm so honored by that role and that title, because to them, I'm displaying those kind of traditional values in the way that we support each other. But to others, they won't see that. And some others call me an uncle, right? And so and I'm sure it has to do with something with my age, and kind of where I'm at in my community. I have 4 adult children, so I've had my experience working with having my own children, but I also work with children and families for 20 plus years in our Indigenous community. And so, long story short, the reason why I say I have no preferred pronouns is not because it doesn't matter to me in the way that people says any. It's almost dismissive, meaning I don't appreciate what those kids are doing nowadays. That's kind of a lot of time I hear that. What I do is I honor them. I honor them and I respect their need to have use this language that wasn't ours, and kind of fit in. And so when people say they want to call me they, them, that makes sense to me. I am a two-spirit person, and then I guess to them that would be accurate. But I also know what I look like and how I've identified most of my life, because I didn't have a choice. That's who I was, and people demanded that of me. But I remember when I was 8 years old, and I gave myself a name. I really loved the name Mahogany, and so I gave myself that name. And I had a few cousins who, they joked and they called me Mahogany, but they kind of stuck to it. And I think those were the first people who really saw who I was. And I knew who I was back then, but I didn't have the space to be who I was. There was people who always kind of, they always knew that I was probably queer. They always knew that I was different. I was told I was different my whole life. But I think we all knew what that meant. And I think one of the reasons I love working with Two-Spirit people of First Nations is I think we're in a good place where we could celebrate that. And so if you call me by any of those pronouns, if it's accurate to you, then I respect that. And if you would like to call me Mahogany, I respect that as well. It's a name that I reclaimed a few years ago. So, I don't, just like anyone who was kind of given knowledge or information, I don't think I'm the expert on anything but my own life and my own journey. I've gained access to so much teachings and information by listening. It's one of my strengths is being able to listen to people and gather the information and make my own decisions about what that is. And so, when I share teachings about what I understand as Two-Spirit, it's really kind of listening to what I was told and kind of using the information that I have had my whole life up until today about what that makes sense to me and how to regurgitate that in a language that people could relate to, that is not threatening, that's not intrusive. And so to me, being a Two-Spirit person could be one of many things, just like the umbrella term that was created in the English language, Two-Spirit, many years ago. And it could be that I'm Two-Spirit, I'm a gay Indigenous man, I'm Two-Spirit. That's accurate for those people who identify that way, part of the 2S LGBTQ spectrum. It makes sense. But it also, and I came out as a gay Indigenous man when I was 26, but I didn't come out as Two-Spirit then. I'm talking about identifying, really. But when I was about 40-ish years old, when I was kind of deciding what I want to do with my career, and someone was saying, you are Two-Spirit. I'm like, well, I don't know that I'm ready to identify as Two-Spirit. It was because of my understanding of it as a traditional role in our community. Just like we all have roles. Some of us are drummers, some of us are healers, some of us are caretakers, some of us are the people who protect, and all of these different roles. Some of us are firekeepers and dancers and whatever those kind of traditional roles that they would like to be. There's elders like Elder Blue who's on, and that's why I didn't identify as Two-Spirit until I was about 40, because I was ready to take on those roles. I was ready to acknowledge those gifts that I was given. I see them so clear as I'm 50 now, and it's been 10 years where I'm like, oh, this makes sense to me. I understand why I know what I know. I understand those feelings. I understand those kind of visions of what I have to do and how I need to serve my community. And I'm so fortunate to be able to, be in my traditional role as a Two-Spirit person and get paid for it, and be in a position where I have a lot of responsibility. I have decision-making responsibility, and I have authority to kind of challenge, what's around us. And that includes systems that didn't really think of us, systems that were set up to make sure that Indigenous people didn't thrive. One of the things I struggled with was school. I was so intelligent. Everyone told me that my whole life, but I couldn't do it. And I couldn't, hold on, my team is super loud. I just need them to chill out. Sorry. So I forgot what I was saying. Where was I? Yeah, sorry, I lost train of thought. I just couldn't even hear myself. So when I gave myself the name Mahogany, it made sense when I was 8, but as I got older, it fit even better because I was ready to stand up and take on that role. I knew I had a lot of intuition. As I got to know people in relationships, people would tease and say, you're a universe baby, the universe will take care of you. And I don't think that's necessarily true. I've had a lot of, my own hardships and my own pain. I have my own story of trauma. I have my own story of mental health, and I have my own story of addictions, and all the things that have happened to me up until this moment to become who I am. But I definitely believe that this role as a two-spirit person, someone who has strong intuition, mediation skills and gifts that were given to me, leadership, that teaching of bravery to challenge kind of people who are in this hierarchy, reminding people that I'm part of the circle. One of the reasons why I kind of just be who I am, like I'm wearing a t-shirt and shorts, I don't let anyone define what success looks like for me. And I want our two-spirit community to remember that they get to define their own success. They get to make their own goals. They get to make decisions regardless of, what we think they should choose. I don't think our role as people who work with our community or service providers or educators or knowledge keepers or elders are to tell people what to do, but it's to give them more options and more choice and more information so that when they make decisions, they could be comfortable with those decisions. At Two Spirits, I arrived here, there wasn't a lot going on. And so I've been able to make sure that we do things led by community, and so I don't know if people know. Oh, sorry, I wasn't done talking about the other connection to Two Spirits. But the other way people could identify as two-spirited is by their gender. I am not a male, I'm not female, I am a two-spirit person. That's my gender. And that's accurate for those people too. And so up until about, I think 45, it made sense to me that that is also my gender in this world that needs labels, in this world that needs to kind of check boxes. And it's very beneficial to the two-spirit community to check boxes. We are currently in the month of June, I have so many speaking engagements. And what I did was let others know, particularly non-Indigenous agencies, communities that want to kind of get information, is that I tell them that it's not my job to educate you, but it is my job to make sure my community has access to what they need. And so, yes, I will charge you, and yes, I will come and talk, and it is what it is. If you find it valuable, wonderful. If you don't, that's okay. We still took the resource we need when we shared that. Obviously, I didn't come here with a PowerPoint presentation. It isn't who I am. I don't know how to thrive in the education system. Like I said, I don't know how to read information and take it in. I have to listen. I have to be active. And we know that that's how Indigenous people do well. Yet we still have to kind of coexist in a system that ignores that that's how people learn, ignores that that's how Indigenous people will thrive. And so I reinforce that by saying, sorry, I'm not going to show you stats, and I'm not going to show you information. I'm not going to give you things that you could do yourself. What I'm going to do is just tell my story, and hopefully somehow it connects, or tell the stories of my community members, because I hear stories every day. I hear stories of, the addictions that our community has, and the reason why some people have experienced that, and houselessness, and the mental health, the discrimination and stigma. I worked before Two Spirits for 20-something years with our Indigenous community, and not once has people talked about or prioritized being two-spirit, let alone HIV and AIDS, which is how this agency kind of started. we don't talk about sexuality. We don't talk about things that could help our overall health. And so I share my story because I remind people that somehow I survived all that. Somehow I managed to not be incarcerated alongside my brothers and my uncle. Somehow I managed to not become addicted like my brother who died of an overdose, and my other brother who died of HIV, and my other brother who committed suicide. Somehow, even though we all had similar choices, was able to. And so I share my story to remind people of how vulnerable we are as a community, but how much potential we have if we're given more choices and more options. My option was, I didn't want that to happen to me. And all I knew was just do what they're not doing. That's it. There was no guidance. There was no one telling me how to survive. There was no one protecting me necessarily in a way that I needed to be protected. And I share this because, can you imagine all of the Indigenous people who probably have a story far worse than mine? A story where people took advantage of those vulnerabilities, and people in our Two-Spirit community had to leave because they weren't even welcome in their own community. The stigma and colonization forces Two-Spirit people to leave and come to a city like Toronto. Or, I left and went to Thunder Bay at first, and Thunder Bay just wasn't big enough for me. And so I came to Toronto. I knew because of who I was that I would thrive in Toronto. Thrive meaning it would give me better opportunities for my family and for myself. And so this is why I respect the position I'm in, and I honor it, and I take it I take the responsibility quite highly, because I just want our community to have more options and more choices and more information and more resources. So I step up and just remind us all that as an Indigenous community, we're not all on the same page with the Two-Spirit community. We had our first powwow last year, and want to know how difficult it was for someone to support us with a big drum. People saying, I don't want to see what you're doing over there. I don't want to see people in regalia that isn't their gender. But what I saw was people being, at our first powwow, was people being able to be who they are for the first time. Some people came up to me. One of my favorite stories is that an elderly lady came up to me and said, "Thank you so much for having this. I drove 7 hours because I can't be a lesbian in my home community." That's one of our seniors, one of our elders, who has to hide and hid for all those years because of the stigma. Others were that my child was able to feel safer, feel welcome, feel like they get to be who they are. They get to dance how they want to dance, and and dancing is healing. And we're telling people how to heal each other and how to heal ourselves. This is the reason why we do what we do at Two Spirits. This is why I know how important it is. This is how I know why, as an Indigenous community, we still have a long way to go, but we're definitely headed there. There's so many Two-Spirit people stepping up. There's so many Two-Spirit communities kind of popping up, Two-Spirit organizations. At Two Spirits, we really thrive on making sure that we hire Indigenous people, Two-Spirit people from our community, because people need to be seen when they go somewhere to feel welcome. They need to be seen to feel like that place was meant for them. They need to see that people were waiting for them. And, as a large, different organizations really need to kind of challenge themselves about, were you ready for Indigenous people? Were you waiting for them? Did you make them feel safer? Did you make them feel welcome? Did you stop thinking about everyone and kind of focus on the folks that are doing disproportionately worse in every social determinant of health, Indigenous people, Two-Spirit people, trans people. Are we doing the work that we should be? And so I've come here not to, get on my high horse and say, look what I'm doing, but I'm coming here to say, Two-Spirit community is ready to take on their roles. They need more people to make them feel welcome and safe. They need more people to take care of what their responsibilities and what their roles are. One of the first teachings that I got as a Two-Spirit person was from my father. I was working in a childcare center, and I said, I was told that only the men could drum, but I said, but I work with all women. So what are we supposed to do? And my dad said, well, when men can't step up and do the roles, other people will have to. He didn't say women, he said other people will have to. Just like if women can't do their roles, other people will have to. And now, as I'm 50 and kind of be able to reflect and kind of go, oh, okay, that's what it meant. Oh, that's what it meant, why I chose the name Mahogany. Oh, that's what my father meant. It meant that Two-Spirit people's part of their role is to step up when other folks can't. And that's why we have the male and female spirit. And that's why we have the ability to be empathetic and relate to other genders and other people's responsibilities. And what a wonderful people to have on our team. What a wonderful people to have in our circle. And so these are just some of the things that I like to share with people because of what I've learned and along my journey and what I know about myself. One of the things that really changed us at Two-Spirit people was COVID. It was very much reminiscent of the HIV crisis and the way that we had to respond to this pandemic. At Two-Spirits, we pivoted so quickly and said, well, we need to take care of people. We can't just sit here in our office waiting for people to come to the door. And that's our aha moment of we need to go to people. We need to go where people are. We need to think of ways we could reach people. Not everyone's going to Google Two-Spirits and come to our door and say, can I have your services? We're going to have to go out there and remind people. It's about our promotion. It's about our branding. I don't know if you've seen our logo, but it's everywhere. Because I want people to see our logo and think, that's a positive space. I remember that. They're the ones who brought my food hamper. I remember them. They're the ones who brought me sandwiches and safer sex supplies and harm reduction supplies. I remember them. They're the ones who were kind to me at an outreach event. I remember them. They were Two-Spirit people. I listen to them, the goals and dreams of our community. And my job is to do as much as I can, thinking of our 7 generations. I don't know how empowered it'd be if I was just thinking of my generation or my children or my grandchildren, because that would be quite difficult to kind of just focus on that. Fulfilling to think of kind of this 7 generations of how we impacted. Oh, I do see questions. I didn't see that there. Okay, so Michael says, how long has Two-Spirit been around? Again, see, this is what I love about me. This is not my job to answer, I'm sure. But from what I know, it's been in time immemorial. It's been a traditional role for us forever. There's many different languages have names for Two-Spirit people. And so, yeah, that's kind of my understanding of that. And, my vision of Two-Spirits coincides with the vision of our community, actually. So I feel very in the right place when I ask my community what you want, and I already know. I ask my community what's the problems, I already know, because I have a relationship, because I'm part of community. I'm there. And so I envision for the Two-Spirit community to have access to resources that are led by them, that are self-determined, that take a page of Truth and Reconciliation and say, you've been failing the Two-Spirit Indigenous community all this time. Give us the resources, give us the access, give us the money, and stand and walk beside us. That's what I envision for the Two-Spirit community. How can those of us in leadership roles help you achieve this vision? Well, remember that it's not just our responsibility. That's one. It's all of our responsibility, whether you're Two-Spirit or not. If you lead Indigenous people, you lead Two-Spirit people. If you lead non-Indigenous organizations and you service Indigenous people, you lead Two-Spirit people. So we're all leaders of, or people who have responsibilities in that. And so it's either, if you can't do it, give us the resources. And if you can do it, make sure that we see ourselves in those roles. Hi, Suzanne, I see you're back.
I wanted to ask a question. Would that be okay?
Yeah, sure.
So a couple things really stood out for me from what you shared, and actually kind of got me really choked up. And that was sort of around some of the parts you shared about your own story, about, having to leave and having to move and not being accepted necessarily by the people that cared about you, and the people that you cared about not being accepted for your sexuality or your sexual identity. And I'm wondering if maybe you could comment a little bit more about sort of how you got through that. Because I think a lot of people struggle with that experience, and despite services that still exist, that newly exist, young people and people of all ages don't always know how to cope with things like that.
Well, yeah, definitely. I've always been told I should write a book about my story because it's quite interesting. I messed up a lot. I always tell people I would never want to be judged for the worst thing I've ever done, because people would not want to stand beside me after that. And I assume a lot of people probably feel that way. So there's a lot of shame and guilt in our community, not just Indigenous community, just out there. And so what I did was I realized that I was setting myself up to fail to be happy 24 hours a day. Creator gave us a million emotions. I should feel them. So when I feel guilty, I should feel it. I feel shame, I should feel it. When I feel sad, I should feel it. But I should do something about it if I don't want to feel that as often. If I want to feel these other feelings more often, then do something about it. And so the first thing I did was, I need to leave this reservation. It was harmful to me. I knew that. I left. What is it going to take me to leave? Graduate from high school. So I showed up barely. Thank God I was intelligent. Did tests, whatever. Didn't read a book in my whole life. I tell everyone that now because I'm not embarrassed anymore. I used to be embarrassed to be like, oh God, if people knew I'm a fraud because I've never read anything and I don't read, I don't learn that way. So now I tell people that there's many ways to do things. There's many ways to be successful. There's many ways to learn. There's many ways to acquire knowledge. But I also do a lot of self-talk. I talk to myself. I feel things, I accept it, and then I think about what I need to do to feel different. It's a new day. It's my favorite thing to say. That was a really rough one. It's a new day. I also share the story so that guilt and shame disappears. I didn't do that. It wasn't. What did I do? I was a child. I remember why I became a foster parent at a really young age. It's because I wanted to protect children. So it didn't happen. What happened to me didn't happen to them. But I knew I can't protect everyone. So I'm really kind of using this role to, first of all, share a story. I know that a lot of times it relates to people. I was in university and I was with a bunch of engineering students, and they put me in engineering because I was smart, even though, I was 19 in engineering. I was like, what is this? I don't even know what an engineer was. And we were having drinks as young people do, and they were studying for our calculus. And there was 9 of us, and we're all Indigenous because it was an Indigenous program. One was Inuit and one was Métis, and the rest were all First Nations, right? And I remember that because they were my friends. And someone got drunk and started crying. And we're like, oh, what are you crying about? Whatever. and they just started telling their trauma about sexual abuse. And of the 9, 8 of them talked about their sexual abuse. I remember that day because it helps me remember the pain that our community has. I don't assume that everyone has that. I sure don't assume that people don't. Sometimes I remind people are rude because they have to be to protect themselves. People are mean because they have to be. They went through a system in a world that treated them like shit, that harmed them, that didn't protect them, that failed them. So now, as someone who knows more, I don't let people shit on me, but I definitely don't take it personally. It has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with who I am. If I, my mom always used to say, it's a good day to die. And I would be like, don't say that. That's horrible. I would be like, why would you say that? And she was young and she would say, it's a good day to die. She'd look out the window. Now I understand what it means. Because I could honestly say that if I have to go today, I'm ready. Let's do the judgment or whatever happens to us, because I'm walking the journey that I'm supposed to. I'm on such a wonderful place that I get to be who I am, and I'm getting paid for it. And I'm also impacting community, and I'm also getting to challenge systems and tell people you're failing and you're not doing what you're supposed to, and you need to leave or do something different. And I don't even know if that answers your question, but that's what I did, and that's what I do, and that's how I walk my own truth. And yes, I still make mistakes, and yes, I'm still definitely not perfect, but if you need someone, I could support you, I will. I always tell people we're not here to help each other. We're here to walk beside each other. I was at birth given everything I need to live my life, and I'm just discovering that every day. And so those people who need our support, help them discover who they are. Help them believe that they're worthy and they're valuable, and that they get to dream and they get to hope and they get to forgive themselves.
Big Witch. I think that went far beyond, answering my question to elaborate a little bit on how you got through all those difficult changes and searches you had to go to work towards understanding and living like your authentic self. And, so what I'm hearing really you say as you explained that process and your own experience with that is that sometimes it's about not just that discovery of yourself, who you are, but it's about the healing that goes along with that. The trauma comes up as part of that, because of being Indigenous people who've experienced these systemic oppressions that have been very personal in nature.
Yeah. Someone once told me that, because I get emotional, right? And I was actually talking in a circle recently and said, anytime I'm in a circle, I get emotional. Anytime I talk, I get emotional because someone says, oh, it's because you haven't healed. And I'm like, well, first of all, not your business. Second of all, life is healing. I'm healing every day until I die. Third of all, I don't cry for myself anymore as much as I cry for our community. I want better for us. And I want our community to be able to feel pride, it's Pride Month, but feel true pride that even though we don't have the similar success to this world that says, here's what success is, own a house, own a car, have a white picket fence, and blah, blah, blah. We get to define our own success. And if your success, when I was 12 years old, I was lying on a couch. My parents had to go to the city. It's like 2 hours. And there was a known predator in our town. And it was just known. No one did anything. People put wood bars over the windows so he didn't break in and assault women. I didn't know if he assaulted men. And so I laid on my couch with a knife because my parents weren't home and no one was home. My brothers were incarcerated. My sister's out drinking. I was the only one there. I was 12. And I laid there on the couch. I'm like, I'm getting him. And it was like, if he comes, I'm getting him. And I remember thinking, I need to make a plan so I don't feel like this, that I'm not laying on a couch with a knife. And that's when I said, my plan is graduate from high school and leave here. High school graduation day, I left. The day of graduation. I didn't even celebrate like everyone else. I was like, the van's packed. Who's driving me to Thunder Bay? You know, I'm moving. I saved my summer money and I'm gone. That was the best thing that I ever did. And I remember making a plan. And one of my plans was to be happy. When I was 26 years old and I came out, I hit that. I was happy because I was able to acknowledge who I was. My other dream was to be in Hawaii. I saw it on TV, you know, in the movies. When I was 35, I went to Hawaii. Now I need to make more dreams and goals. And that's when I acknowledge being Two-Spirit and how I need to have dreams for other people and other goals for other people.
Keith, you've just inspired me to set goals and to work on myself in that way. And I'm sure that you've inspired everyone else who's listening here today and the many people who are going to listen to this when it's put out there on the internet.
Thank you.
So I'd like to say, Merci Cho, thank you, Miigwech, and just check to see if there's one last question or comment. There's some words of thanks for sharing your story, and a lot of gratitude for the work that you're doing and your wisdom, and we're very grateful that you made time to come and share that with us. And I'm going to turn it over to Clay to give some concluding remarks from a traditional knowledges perspective before he does the closing. So Merci Cho, thank you.
Miigwech, Keith, for your inspiring words. Thank you, brother, for everything you're doing in the community. And I know it's a long time coming. It's been a real struggle, and I've lived in the city most of my life. And you can only say it's very recently, as you're aware, that the Two-Spirited community is being recognized in this city. And I'll just show this. I've been around, you know, in ceremony and before the word Two-Spirited was even phrased, you know, we just, and Two-Spirited people my whole life. And because we're in ceremony, we're in a community, and you know, and the only requirement to participate in ceremony is that we're a human being, right? We have our ceremonies, and the four-leggeds, the crawlers, the swimmers, the flyers have their ceremonies, and we have ours, and that's the only requirement. And we keep saying this to the world. We keep saying this to everyone, and I just want to say thank you for keep saying that, Keith, in your own words, and all the things you're doing. All right. So Miigwech for everything you do. So with that, I'll just say a closing prayer. Again, I just want to say thank you to Creator for bringing us together. And I ask for the blessings for Keith and all the work he does in the organization he works with. It's not easy, a lot of work to be done. And I give thanks for bringing us together. And I give thanks to the earth, the sun, the sky, and creation for bringing us together. All my relations. Miigwech, good to see you again, brother.
Yes, you too.
Miigwech, thank you.